I got some problems with Star Wars Outlaws, man, but there is a game underneath all of that, and it's not that bad. I'm going to attempt to cut through all the bullshit and hopefully give you guys a better understanding of where things are at so you can decide whether or not to give this game a shot. Something that you guys should know before we get into this video is that I'm not even a Star Wars fan. Bruh. So, you know, I've seen the original films like episode 1, episode 4, 5, and 6. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not a fanboy, so just remember that. I'm not coming at this with any kind of bias one way or the other. This isn't a sponsored video, so I'm not pressured to say anything, or, you know, this is just me. This is how I feel about the game. Right at the start, I'd like to address something that I've been seeing, especially in a lot of early release footage over the last few years in games. This is something I talk about a lot on my stream, and I do my best to make my fellow game devs aware of the fact that the quality of this footage that they're putting out of their games is trash. It's terrible. Most of the footage is at 4K, is recorded at bitrate so low that it looks worse than the average Twitch stream. And then I see a React video and the comments are, this game just looks like trash, and I'm just like, ah. And the solution is so easy. It's such an easy fix. It takes like 2 seconds. If I could get one message to all my fellow game devs out there, it would be record on the best hardware that we currently have available. Turn every graphical option up to the highest possible setting and set your bitrate at something like 30, 40, maybe even 50,000 kilobits per second. Don't use the default settings in Premiere Pro or whatever video editor you're using to export your videos. Crank the shit up. Present it in the best possible light. Funnily enough, the biggest culprits of this shit are AAA developers. Weird. I don't know if it's like a marketing department thing where they just don't know what the f they're doing or what, but do better. This is hurting your reputation, man, and it's such an easy fix. Literally takes 2 seconds to type in 30,000 kilobits per second. It blows my mind that this is such a simple mistake and it's still being made today. If you go to like game trailers and look at 90% of all the trailers of the footage of games that even came out in the last big show, they're all trash. The bit rates are all really, really low and it's terrible. Anyway, that aside, let's get straight into tackling some of the harshest critiques that this game has currently been facing. First of all, a big one. It's about how KVS looks. Yeah, I know, touchy subject, but I want to put this whole conversation out to pasture. We all know that Humbly Gonzalez is the voice and motion capture artist for KVS, but there's no evidence anywhere that I could find that her face was scanned with the express intention of her being in the game as a likeness. That's what we call it in the business, a likeness. I feel like I need to be really clear here about exactly what a likeness is and isn't. Obtaining a likeness for an actor or actress generally means that you pay that actor or actress for the rights to use their face, their identity in your product. Some really good examples of this are Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba in Cyberpunk 2077. It's unmistakably them. We even have an example of this in the Star Wars franchise. It's Cameron Monaghan in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, I think it was called. So they do this. They do know what this is. But this isn't what happened with Humbly Gonzalez in KVS. It just doesn't look like her. So this is why I'm saying I'm not sure if they obtained a likeness or that was ever the intention. The more likely scenario in my professional experience is that they scanned Humbly Gonzalez for the express purpose of motion capture, and that's it. But usually what happens is that throughout that process of recording, they work in certain elements and features of the face into that character. But it seems to me like Ubisoft has been able to keep full creative control over what that character looks like. I think we can all agree that it doesn't really look like her, but it kinda looks like her. I'm only familiar with this process because I've done this for the Lord of the Rings franchise, and I work with Scarlett Johansson and Ghost in the Shell, as well as several other likenesses for video games and films in my career. So moving on to another heavy-hitting piece of critique is its price point. I'm just gonna step in here right away, cut this off immediately, and say, do not pay full price for this game. It's a much better idea to sign up to Ubisoft Plus, pay 15 or 20 bucks, whatever it is in your local currency, get that for the month, get the premium edition of the game, download it. I think, yeah, 15, 20 bucks, tackle it that way. I do think it's worth paying that price for it. Maybe sneak in another playthrough of 1 or 2 other Ubisoft titles so you can get your money's worth. Dude, there is no way I would pay, what is it, like $170 for the Ultimate Edition of this game?
No chance.
No chance in hell. I would never pay that price, not in a million years. So this leads us to the second point around the pricing, and particularly with regards to the people who purchased the game on the PS5. If you got the early access version, essentially you were hit with a notification that said on day 1 launch, you needed to start the game again, completely nullifying the fact that you got to play the game early. So even if you got 30 hours in, on the actual launch day, you needed to start again. And if you didn't, you would face progress blockers and quest bugs, like literally game-breaking stuff. I don't actually know what's more stupid, paying for early access as a concept or what Ubisoft has done with it here. I guess there's arguments for both cases, but I personally think that early access for anyone, even press, is stupid. Everybody should get the game at the same time. I'm sick of seeing 100% reviews pop up 1 minute after the official release date of the game. At the end of the day though, the right thing to do would be to refund the people that paid for that privilege for the 3 days of early access, but technically you could play the game for those 3 days. So, you know, the trolley thing to do would be absolutely do nothing and just get wrecked PS5 players. The next thing that Star Wars Outlaws is coming under fire for is quote unquote dumb enemy AI. I don't know, man, this is something that's always going to cause a divide in the audience. For me personally, I don't really find it that bad. In fact, I actually enjoy dispatching a whole group of enemies in the exact same way, from the exact same spot. The dumbness kind of makes it fun for me. And let's be honest, some of these dumb moments or having AI do really stupid shit in games are the most captured, shared, memed moments of all time. So is it really a bad thing? I don't know, man, it's debatable depending on whether or not you want a challenge. I have heard that if you crank the difficulty right up to the highest possible levels, the AI is actually a lot smarter. So I probably need to check that out. Checkpointed autosaves are causing a lot of problems for some people too. And this is something that did annoy me on a couple of missions, particularly because the checkpoint was so far back. I needed to infiltrate the entire base all over again. While this might not be a bad thing for some players, especially the ones that are choosing to play with a run and gun style, for me, choosing to play full stealth, it meant I lost 30 to 45 minutes of gameplay, and that felt kind of punishing. Too much. Just a quick little note about this also. Let's say you were infiltrating a base, you opened 3 or 4 treasure chests along the way, and you died and had to restart outside the base and do it all again. It's not actually a complete reload. All those chests that you opened, they're already opened again. So it's almost like the game's throwing you back outside. It's reloading the game, but it's saving the state of all the loot that you opened. What? In general, Outlaws has copped a lot of flack about it looking really dated, but I strongly beg to differ here, especially with a decent GPU and PC. The game's draw distances and lighting model allow for some of the best visuals I've ever seen in any game to date. There are some gobsmackingly beautiful environments, and it's abundantly clear that the art team at Ubisoft Massive, they really understand the Star Wars aesthetic. The textures, materials, and the overall lighting and atmosphere that's in the game, there's always movement on the screen. Something's always happening. Various ships flying around, animals moving around, people going about their business, speeders flying past. It's amazing. There are so many intricate details to be found, and it's not really contributing anything to gameplay, but it does make you feel like you're on the set of a movie. Like, it reminds me of the Lord of the Rings films, the attention to detail in the little corners of every single set, of every single storefront or little back alley place. It's amazing, really is. I do like the optional cinematic preset to add black bars to the top and bottom of the screen, but I totally realize that this is a personal preference. Unlike Starfield and Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm yet to experience some really crappy frame rates in this game. There have definitely been some spikes where it's probably dropped down below 20 FPS, but they are for less than a second. In general, it sits probably around 35 all the way up to 60 FPS for me. Maybe around 30 at the heart of the city or an area where there's just a crap load of characters and a whole bunch of stuff going on. I am playing at 2K resolution and I'm on a 10900K paired with a 3080. Keep in mind, I do have every single possible graphical setting cranked up to the highest possible level. all the advanced settings cranked to the maximum. I do have DLSS on, but it's running at native resolution, so there's no upscaling. So there's definitely room for some FPS gains. If I, felt too bothered by those low spikes, I can probably tweak a few settings and gain some FPS there easy. I haven't had any crashes yet. The game has been rock solid. I stream for a long time. My streams are generally anywhere from 10 to 12 hours at a time. I don't even have to restart the game. I really don't have any complaints around that at all. So the next critique that everybody's talking about with regards to stuff, man, there's a lot. There's a lot of shit that people are talking about that's just negative about this game, but it's the whole weapon system. I don't really know what they were thinking with regards to this. I don't know whether they're trying to forcibly restrict you into having Kay and create this relationship with just her and her blaster and Nyx, and that's it, or what the whole idea was behind this. But for anybody that doesn't know, if you're on the fence and you're wondering, all the weapons in the game that the enemies have, most of them drop for you to pick up. The problem is that you can only hold on to them for like 30 seconds at max. And while you've got one of those weapons, you automatically drop them if you go into a vent, if you try to climb a ladder, if you try to perform some kind of action which is you moving through the environment. You just drop the weapon automatically. It's like you can't take it from one place to the next. And I think that's the exact opposite of what you would want to do technically if you picked up a sniper rifle, for example. You want to get to some high ground so you can take a shot. Nope, can't do it. Who came up with that idea? I do think that the game would have benefited from having that complete array of weaponry open so that you, as the player, could outfit Kay however you want it. If you wanted to have a grenade launcher or a rocket launcher and that's it, and just run and gun, walk into every base just like mowing enemies down, good for you. If you didn't want to do that and you wanted to play full stealth, I think that the best thing that they could have added into the game was some hand-to-hand weaponry, some short knives, something to help support the fact that she's an assassin or a stealth killer, because there's only so many times that you can punch a stormtrooper in the head before it feels a little comical seeing the same thing over and over and over and over. And it's just like a giant slow haymaker to the helmet. Not that there's anything wrong with throwing haymakers, but maybe they could have saved that animation for the enemies without helmets on. And if there was a helmet, a quick like neck snap, or something like, grabbing the helmet, bending it to the side and like chop to the neck, like just come up with some ways to look around the whole helmet issue, because it just looks goofy. Faction reputation. Man, this is a big one. I think that Ubisoft really f***ed this up. This was a prime opportunity to do something very, very cool inside the game. When I first started playing, I was very careful about which faction I wanted to join and who I felt comfortable with pissing off, because I thought it would really matter. But the more that I played the game, the more that I realized it doesn't matter at all. You can just farm that reputation back easily just by doing a few basic contract quests. So it kind of really diminished the overall feel about what faction I was aligned with. I think the last critique that this game is facing is that a lot of people are saying it's a very formulaic Ubisoft typical experience. It's an Assassin's Creed game, just kind of like remade just a little bit, set in the Star Wars universe, but it's essentially the exact same game that they've been making for the past 20 years. I can't really dispute or disagree with that. It is just a new setting. I'm not really sure that's a bad thing overall though, because the games are generally good games. I kind of like them. I like Assassin's Creed. The problem that I do have is if you're going to make a reskin of a game that you've already made before, it should technically be as good or better than the ones you've just made. Otherwise, you need to be totally accepting to the fact that you're going to get critiqued for it. You're going to get absolute shit on online. Those good old days when gamers would just eat up and subscribe to big developers just because they were like, this developer is my favorite game developer. Whatever they make is going to be awesome. I will throw cash at them. I will throw all my money, pre-order all their games because I know that the quality is going to be good. Those days are gone. Gone. And I think that big game developers still think we're living in those days. We aren't. They need to wake up, open their eyes, and realize they just can't do what they've been doing for the last 20 years and expect to keep getting away with it. It's not going to work anymore. They need to step their game up. We're so lucky as gamers nowadays, man. We have so many choices. And what's crazy is there are indie game developers out there that are hitting home runs, kind of blockbuster games with tiny dev teams, tiny budgets. They're absolutely making a mockery of some AAA game devs, quadruple A game devs. It's kind of awesome. Now, I know that this is a bunch of negative stuff about Star Wars Outlaws, but despite everything that I've said, I don't think that it's a terrible game. I kind of like the formula. I like the Assassin's Creed formula. It's not bad. Is it great? No. Is it doing anything revolutionary? No. Could it potentially have made some really good gains in a genre that needs some gains? Absolutely. It really could have, but it didn't. If I had to pick my favorite thing about Star Wars Outlaws, it would be how the quests and what do they call it in the game? The info and intel stuff all works. Think of it like this. You're walking through a city and you hear a couple of people, scoundrels, talking about some kind of some deal that they had, just a kind of a rumor about some scam that they were running. That gets marked into your journal as a piece of intel. You don't really know where, you didn't hear anything about a location or anything like that. You simply know that something took place. You don't hear anything else about it because you're actually on a mission to do something else, an actual story quest. Then in a completely different location, a different part of the city, you hear two more people or a group sitting at a table and they're actually discussing the same rumor that you heard back there, but they actually have a location. So now you've actually got like a map marker, and that intel is now turned into like almost like a chain of events. And now that you've got more intel, you have a place to go and investigate to see what actually took place, to see whether there was anything to this rumor. And the stuff that really surprised me about this was that some of these chains of intel turned into full-blown adventures with really cool rewards, like brand new paint jobs for your entire ship, brand new paint jobs for your speeder, or that led to charms for you and Nyx that enabled permanent buffs and things like that. Like really good, high quality rewards. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap this up. I hope you found it informative at least. I hope I cleared up some of the stuff that you may be thinking about, or if you're, trying to figure out whether or not you want to purchase this game. Once again, I want to say thank you to all of the people who support me, my YouTube members, my Patreons, and all of my subscribers on my Twitch channel. Links for all of that stuff down below. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys again. Peace.